Well, what a week. What a week of college football. Welcome in, everybody. This is the S&D 50 College Football Show. If you're new here, what are we? What are you listening to? Well, we can answer that really quick. This is a show that said, hey, when you look at an AP poll, you look at a coach's poll, that doesn't seem right. Why is that team there? Wait a second. Didn't this team win a huge game last week? Why are they nowhere to be found? You're right. Those are the same questions we asked. So we decided to pour hundreds of hours into making our own mathematical model that performance rates all 136 teams in FBS college football week in and week out. We update that model each week. We release the top 50 and we give it to the world so that the teams that need the credit they deserve get that credit. So that's why we're here. That's why you're here. We go through it. Teams 41 through 50 in the S&D 50 week 4. Heading into week 4, here are our teams. At 50, we have SMU up 11 spots. 49, UCF. 48, Clemson. 47, South Carolina. 46, Arkansas. 45, Washington. 44, Baylor. 43, UNLV. 42, Kentucky. And 41, Kansas. Let's start with SMU. Up 11 spots in the rankings at 50th.
I don't really know what to make of SMU at this point in the season. Like, they dominated Missouri State. They've got a huge game this week against TCU that I think is going to be really the bellwether for their season. I think how they perform against TCU, for me at least, that's going to shape how they do all year, or at least my perception of how they're going to do this year.
At 49, we have UCF down 2 spots in the rankings. They are on a bye this week. No, they were on a bye last week. They were on a bye last week. This week, they have North Carolina.
Yeah, Bill Belichick looking for more wins, looking for places to pick them up. UCF is not going to be an easy test for that team. But yeah, UCF, a great case of they dropped in the model. Actually, it's worth noting, our model doesn't sit idle. If you sit idle, you may or may not take or lose points in your rating, depending on how opponents you've played recently perform. UCF actually slipped both in rank and in rating based on how their past opponents did. So just an interesting little model tidbit there.
And the model does, like Spencer said, by who you've recently played, we weight those teams' points and those get added or subtracted from your rating week in and week out. Great point, Spencer. At 48, we have Clemson. They are down 25 spots in the rankings. This week, they have Syracuse.
The ACC is wide open right now, and I'm excited to talk about other teams ahead of Clemson in the ACC.
I have a feeling I know maybe what some of those teams might be, so I'll let us get there, though.
Don't want to be a rambling wreck, but we'll move on. At 47, we have South Carolina down 32 spots in the rankings. They lost to Vanderbilt. We highlighted this earlier. This week, they have Missouri, a chance to get right.
Now, I will say, I know that there have been conversations about the health of Lenora Sellers. Something that you'll never see in our model that you will see accounted for in things like the AP poll is that future expectation, especially when it comes to like quarterback health or anything like that. At the end of the day, South Carolina dropped because they lost. And you could say that injuries are going to fuel a team to lose. That could totally be true. But until they play that game on the field and until they take that double-digit loss, they're not necessarily going to slip.
The reason why Texas was ranked preseason number 1 is because of future expectations of Arch Manning. And we are now seeing a model might be a little more reliable than future expectations on a player who's barely played. So
at 46, we have Arkansas down 27 spots in the rankings after that Ole Miss loss. This week, they play a team in the S&D that is rated higher than them. We won't disclose that now where they are, but that team is Memphis.
Yeah, Arkansas had a really tough road game against Ole Miss. That game was very close. It was our third highest competitive rating of the week of our games to watch at a 79. And Arkansas almost pulled it out. This is an Arkansas team, by the way, that our model's been pretty high on. We had them as high as 18th or 19th when they were maybe just picking up a few votes here and there in the AP poll. And I think Arkansas still has a chance to make some noise in the SEC. Their quarterback, Taylon Green, is super talented. Never count out Sam Pittman's teams. So I think Arkansas is going to be a team to watch on SEC schedules.
At 45, we have Washington down 1 spot in the rankings. They were on a bye this week. Upcoming, they have the Apple Cup against Washington State.
How good do you have to feel in the lead up to the Apple Cup to watch your rival just get walloped by North Texas? I mean, that game was not even close. Washington State should not pose too much of a challenge for the Huskies, especially as our model interprets it.
At 44, we have Baylor up 7 spots in the rankings. This week, they have Arizona State.
Yeah, Baylor-Arizona State's going to be a big Big 12 matchup. Not the biggest of the week, though. We got another bigger game coming up, but that'll be an important game for the Bears to see if Dave Aranda's team can actually meet some of those really high preseason expectations.
At 43, we have UNLV down 6 spots in the rankings. They are coming off a bye, and this week they have from the formidable MAC, the conference we can't quit on this show, Miami of Ohio. The Red Hawks.
Oh.
Shout out Spencer's 5th grade teacher.
This is going to be an exciting one with UNLV at Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio they finished tied for first in the MAC last year. Now they started off the year with 2 Big Ten teams. And so they're 0-2, but they're looking to bounce back. And you got UNLV, the only ranked team, I guess, spoiler alert, the only ranked team for the Mountain West Conference taking on Miami, Ohio will be a fun one to see which conference can come out on top.
Yeah,
Jacob?
especially as we're starting to get out of, into the tail end, I should say, especially as we're getting into the tail end of non-conference matchups. That's a good one.
At 42, we have Kentucky up 10 spots in the rankings. They won by 25 against Eastern Michigan. They're on a bye this week. And at 41, we have Kansas down 1 spot in the rankings. They were also on a bye. This week, they have the scrappy West Virginia Mountaineers coming off an overtime victory against the Pitt Panthers.
Yeah, that backyard brawl was something, but I don't know that West Virginia has what it takes to stop Jalen Daniels. I think Kansas is going to take this one.
Teams 31 through 40. At 40, we have Louisville. At 39, Florida State. 38, Navy. 37, Michigan State. 36, Texas Tech. 35, Michigan. 34, Alabama. 33, Houston. 32, Maryland. And 31, Cal Bears. We'll start with Louisville at 40, down 4 spots in the rankings. They're coming off a bye. This week they have, from the formidable MAC, Bowling Green.
Spencer, this is the part of the podcast where you talk about how much you love Louisville.
I'm just going to say, I think Louisville is still a dark horse to win the ACC.
You keep wishing. You keep saying that.
Hey, Bowling Green is 83rd. Bowling Green's 83rd in our S&D index. If they can pull off a win, it will continue to boost them up. Okay, Florida State at 39, up 6 spots in the rankings. They are also on a bye. And this week, you might as well consider them on a bye again. They have Kent State.
That's true. That I don't know that the Golden Flashes count as anything but a bye. Sorry, no disrespect to Kent State, but your only win of the last 2 calendar years was Merrimack, so a little bit of disrespect. I will say Florida State, an important call out here. Our model hasn't seen enough from Florida State to really tell us how good they're going to be. This is the biggest rank gap of any team ranked in the model, if I'm not mistaken. The AP has them at 7. And we've got them at 39 for a wonderful gap of 32 between the two. We just haven't seen enough from Florida State. And frankly, that win against Alabama was excellent, but they haven't done much since. And the model's not going to reward them until they do.
Spencer, do you know what Florida State was ranked last week?
10th, I believe.
Yeah, they went up 3. They went from 10 to 7 off of a bye. Like, come on. Like, what? Where does the AP pull this out? Like 10 to 7. But anyways, yep. We haven't seen enough from them. 39's just a fine spot for them, in my opinion.
And here's another how the S&D 50 works. Florida State could beat Kent State by 100. And the way this model works, because Kent State is so far beneath even Florida State at 39,
Kent State
the model's only going to give up. Go ahead.
Sorry, Kent State all the way down at 116.
116 out of 136. Florida State could put up 100, and Kent State will not give Florida hardly any points because those game points that Florida State collects will be adjusted to probably under 10 points earned.
Yeah, one more call out here to make, not actually related to Florida State, but Florida State, I made the note that that's our biggest gap between the AP poll and the S&D 50 ranking. Just one quick shout out. There's only one AP team that isn't even ranked in our 50, and that is Notre Dame at 54. Still only a gap of 30 spots between their AP rank of 24 and the S&D rank of 54. But yeah, all the other AP 25 teams will be represented from Florida State on up.
At 38, we have Navy up 11 spots in the rankings. They are coming off a win against Tulsa. They're on a bye this week. I like Navy in this spot. Navy got voting consideration in the AP poll this week. And once again, the S&D 50, we don't look at these other polls. They don't factor in at all into our index. And it's fun to see that Navy's creeping up into that S&D 50. You see them creeping and getting votes in the AP poll. It's fun to be on the early side of these teams starting to ascend. At 37, we have Michigan State down 13 spots in the rankings. They played Youngstown State this week. They have a much more competitive opponent in USC.
Yeah, this is one of those times where, your rank is not going to go up. Your rating is not necessarily going to go up if you're not playing good competition. So that win against Youngstown State didn't do them any credit. They actually, because opponents they've beaten were out losing this past week, they actually lost points relative to where they were a week ago because Youngstown State was essentially a bye. They got less than 10 points added to their rating for beating Youngstown State.
And they got a net negative 41 in rating points on the week. At 36, we have Texas Tech up 6 spots in the rankings. They beat Oregon State by 31 this week. They have the big noon game against Utah.
Yeah, we'll talk about this specific matchup more later, but Texas Tech is going to have their first shot to make a real jump in the ratings this week.
At 35, we have Michigan up 18 spots in the rankings for beating down on Central Michigan. This week, they have Nebraska.
Talk about a bounce back, am I right?
I mean, the S&D 50, if you win, they can come off a loss against Oklahoma and be up 18 spots right back into the S&D 50. Welcome back, Michigan.
I mean, they were definitely helped by the fact that Oklahoma went around and walloped Temple.
Sadly, Jacob and I are Temple fans.
Yes, that was sad. But with Michigan, it's interesting because they're still ranked in the AP. Nebraska is not ranked in the AP.
Ooh, there's a spoiler on that one. This Nebraska-Michigan game will be an S&D 20 and a 30 team matchup, Jacob. How about that?
Oh, it's just exciting to see Nebraska on top of Michigan.
That's right. That's right. A team that even had a bigger jump than Michigan into the rankings. We have Alabama at 34, up 24 spots in the rankings. They walloped Wisconsin, and this week they are on a bye.
Welcome back, Alabama.
And welcome back, SEC scheduling, where you got Bama on a bye and Georgia on a bye the weeks before they face each other.
They know how to schedule.
All that they do.
At 33, Houston up 17 spots in the rankings. They beat Colorado. This week, they are also on a bye.
Hey, we talked about this last week. I said, I'll eat my words. I said, Jacob, that Colorado is a better opponent with better pedigree than who Houston's been playing. And you know what? You must have called that team. You must have said, hey, Willie, I got a buddy, and you need to go smack down on Colorado so I can talk smack on him.
I wish you could see me right now, Spencer. I am fist pumping in the air, holding my hands up. Houston Cougars, baby. Put the beat down on Colorado. They are here to make some noise in the Big 12.
And they jump from 50 to 33. Once again, the S&D giveth. If you win and you beat quality opponents, up you go. At 32, Maryland down 7 spots in the rankings. They had a win against Towson this week. A little bit better opponent in Wisconsin.
Yeah, they'll get more points for beating Wisconsin if they can pull that off. Fun rating fact, they moved up a mere 6.98 rating points for that win against Towson. So especially when you compare that to Houston, who moved up over 100 points after beating Colorado, got 129 points just for that win. Not a lot of credit given for this soft scheduling at any point in the season, but especially when your peers are playing good FBS games.
Regardless of how many you win by. At 31, the Cal Bears up 17 spots in the rankings. They beat Minnesota at home this week. They have San Diego State.
Okay, why is nobody talking about a potential undefeated season for the California Golden Bears? They, in the ACC, okay, all right, undefeated might be a little much, but talk about ACC championship game. No, they in the ACC, no Miami, no Florida State, no NC State on their schedule. Let me just read this. San Diego State, Boston College, Duke, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Louisville. I guess that's looking like their toughest game, Spencer.
Hey, you heard it here.
But Louisville doesn't come till their third to last game. They got Louisville, Stanford, SMU. Their two toughest opponents remaining are Louisville and SMU. Why are we not talking about the California Golden Bears being a playoff team?
They're 31 in the S&D 50, up 17 spots. They're knocking on the door. We are on it. This model is on it, and that's what I love.
Yeah, this is a long season, though. Don't get ahead of yourself, Jacob. It's a long season. But to your point, Arizona State, even later in the season than this, wasn't even in the S&D 50 at this at a later date in the seasons. A lot of room to go up, a lot of space to fall back down.
Hey, I'm not saying Cal is a playoff team. Do I truly believe that they're a playoff team? Probably not. But I look at their schedule and I ask myself, could they? And I see why not. Why couldn't? I think they're good enough to do very well with that kind of schedule.
Here's the thing, too. I actually 100% agree with you, and our model agrees with you. And I see Cal scheduling as like the Missouri. Cal's got the Missouri schedule, not in terms of location, but in terms of relative to the conference powerhouses. They've got the Missouri schedule this year of the ACC. The difference there is I actually think Cal is a better team than Missouri. They're lower rated than Missouri. We're going to get to those Tigers, but I think Cal could come to Missouri, I guess, is where the only place they'd be allowed to play. But yeah, I think Cal could take Missouri.
I love the staff that Justin Wilcox and his guys have put together. Brian Harsin, former Boise State coach, former Auburn coach. He's the offensive coordinator. The general manager, Ron Rivera from the NFL. I have this opinion and this take on Cal that these great places to live, if you want to live in Berkeley, there's a job for you. And if you want great weather, come work for our football team. And lo and behold, here comes Cal out of nowhere. So it looks like they're coming out of nowhere, but I have this hunch as these power conference teams who have money, who are in great locations, accumulate talent in their staff, these teams will start to rise.
If you want high cost of living, come on. We have plenty of room for you.
Hey, they got the money to pay for it. That's fair.
That's right. If you can pay for the cost of
they're
living,
not recruiting us, Jacob. No one's recruiting us to go to Berkeley and run a college football program.
One day.
Though the NCAA, if you're listening to this, come recruit us to help run your ratings and rankings. We'd happily join in on that.
We'd also help do your TV scheduling to let you know who should be on TV and who shouldn't.
Yes.
The S&D 50 teams 21 through 30. At 30, we have Memphis, 29 Arizona State, 28 Tennessee, 27 Arizona, 26 BYU, 25 NC State, 24 Texas, 23 Nebraska, 22 Utah, and 21 Rutgers. We'll start with Memphis, up 16 spots in the rankings at 30. They are coming off a win against Troy, and this week they have Arkansas.
Here's
team
something
they are now ranked ahead of. Memphis is ahead of Arkansas in the S&D 50, people. Pay attention.
And the thing about Memphis right now is that people aren't going to be paying attention. People are going to see that. They're going to see it's Arkansas on the road, and they're still going to think to themselves, yeah, they got this. But Memphis is a quality team. Memphis plays in a quality conference. It's not the SEC, but the American is not to be messed around with. So
just behind the ACC.
Just behind the ACC. We'll get to those conference ratings. And within, spitting distance of the ACC, too. There's not a yawning gap between the ACC and the American. There is between the American and the SEC, but not between the ACC and the American. So Memphis really helping lead the way in that conference.
Memphis has a great shot, especially coming off a 21-point victory, so they are rested and ready to go. So that will probably be their Super Bowl. At 29, we have Arizona State up 30 spots in the rankings. They are coming off a win against Texas State, a team we had in the S&D 50 by 19 points. This week, they have Baylor.
This will be like we were saying earlier, this will be a telling week for Arizona State against Baylor. I truly believe Arizona State should have beat Mississippi State, that they are the better team. And I believe that Arizona State is going to start stringing together some wins. Now, looking ahead at their schedule, though, they have one of the toughest Big 12 schedules out there. They play basically all the top teams in the Big 12 and basically on back-to-back weeks. So it's important for them to get this one against Baylor this week to get them started off right.
At 28, we have Tennessee down 25 spots in the rankings after that gut-wrenching loss to Georgia. They have a get-right game against UAB.
Poor UAB. If I were a little team, I would absolutely be rooting for my opponent to win the game before, maybe catch them when they're high and not paying attention. But when you get the loser of a marquee game the next week, that's a recipe for disaster.
Poor Trent Dilfer.
Poor Trent.
Gosh, man, I've been waiting for Trent to turn UAB around, but it just hasn't happened.
Fighting Dilfers will have to wait another week.
They've been playing competitive all season long. They've been fighting. They've been fighting the good fight. I have a thought on that Tennessee-Georgia game I want to share right here. If you're Tennessee and you have a chance to knock off Georgia at home and you are in field goal range, I don't like the way they played the end of that game, where they, from the 2-3 minute mark, they know they're in range, so they run the ball 3 times, they run out the timeouts. You see about 7 pan shots over to the kicker. Josh Heupel's talking to the kicker. It's a lot of pressure to put on the kicker for that long. I'm of the opinion, go for the jugular. You keep playing the game because there's time left. Get as close as you can, or run that field goal team out and kick that ball as fast as you can. Do not, I repeat, no matter how good your kicker is, do not piddle around near the 30, the 40, and the 40-yard field goal range and feel safe. It's a lot of pressure because Tennessee has not beat Georgia now for 9 years. Anyway, end of my Tennessee rant.
Your points are valid, Andrew. I agree with that. I think Josh Heupel may have botched the end of that game, but I don't think Tennessee's season is over.
Oh, no, absolutely not. The futures, it's the SEC. You have a chance every week. The S&D 50 is the witness here. You have a chance to bump up all you want.
But how good do you have to be feeling if you're Josh Heupel, or if you're the Tennessee GM or whoever they got in that position? How good do you have to be feeling about what's happening at UCLA right now?
Great.
Just so good. They feel excellent. Even after this, they have something they can fall back on and be like, well, at least we're not the Bruins.
And I'd like to note, too, Tennessee is at 15 in the AP poll. The S&D 50 has them at 28. All right, at 27, we have Arizona up 7 spots in the rankings. They came off a win against Kansas State, and this week they're on a bye.
Yeah, they got fair credit for that Kansas State game. They were already in the S&D before. They moved up 7 spots from 34. Arizona being ahead of Arizona State, though, has probably got to rankle some Sun Devils, so I can't wait for that game later in the year.
Territorial Cup. At 26, we have BYU. They were on a bye. Their increase in points came from Stanford beating Boston College. This week, they go to East Carolina.
This is one of the few teams, it might be the only, where the SND and the AP have them at the exact same spot. BYU is the first team out of the AP poll, and here they are. First team out, I guess, of top 25 of the SND.
Jacob's
I did
correct.
not realize.
We have teams dancing around the 1 or 2 spots different than the AP poll. This one's spot on. Nailed it. At 25, we have NC State up 13 spots in the rankings. They are coming off a win by 10 against Wake Forest. This week, they have Duke. Duke coming off that loss to Tulane.
That Duke-Tulane game, man, we'll talk about that. But yeah, I would feel pretty good right now if I'm NC State. You're going to take a Duke team that's on the back foot. You've got a really good quarterback in CJ Bailey. I think NC State likes how things are looking for the rest of the year.
NC State is another team that I think could vie for an ACC championship game spot. I've forgotten about Louisville, Spencer. I'm sorry to tell you. I've forgotten them. What we're not talking about is let's look ahead a few weeks. NC State's schedule, if they get past Duke this week, they got another cupcake after that. And then they got Notre Dame. So this
Lovely.
NC State game with Notre Dame that looked like a pretty solid, chalk up a W for Notre Dame doesn't look like a W anymore. You could have a 6-0 NC State coming in to face Notre Dame in that game.
Notre Dame team that could even potentially have 3 losses by that point. Notre Dame really struggling to start the year. But NC State is going to have a tough final stretch with home games, not in order, but home games against Georgia Tech and Florida State, road games against Miami, Pitt, Notre Dame, and then, they finish hosting North Carolina. But, if they can push through that, they're a shoo-in, not just for being undefeated. I mean, that's a really tough schedule to have in the ACC.
Yes, but like here, the S&D's got them at 25, and in my opinion, that's putting them in contention for the ACC.
All right. At 24, we have Texas up 7 spots in the rankings. They had quite the struggle against UTEP. This week, they have Sam Houston State, a very, very low-rated team in the S&D 50, 125th. This should be Arch Manning's chance to get right and to prove people wrong if he's going to do so.
But I would have said that about UTEP, though.
Come on, tell us how good Arch Manning is, Spencer.
Hey, whoa. I said he's playing better, and that is true. I will stand by that. I don't necessarily think that Arch Manning is the quarterback that everyone makes him out to be. He could be. I mean, I would not put a ceiling on a Manning for fear that I would find myself, being struck down by whatever power makes the Manning so good. But I just don't see it right now. He's getting better, but that's a long way to go. I don't know that Sam Houston's going to challenge him, though. Sorry, Jacob.
No, they won't. They won't. Sam Houston lost their coach to Temple. Sam Houston's on tough times.
They are 125th in the S&D 50. And to note, Texas is 8th in the AP poll. Once again, this is why we make this poll. Texas has not performed on the field to be the 8th best team in the country. No slight at Steve Sarkisian and Arch Manning, but they haven't. They have a chance to bump up as much as they please because they're going to play great opponents throughout the year. But up to this point, I think 24 feels pretty right. At 23, we have Nebraska down 5 spots in the rankings. They're coming off a 52-point win against a cupcake. And this week, they have Michigan.
Yeah, another case of beating an FCS team and getting passed by. So got passed by several teams with better wins and even some teams with just mediocre wins. Utah beating Wyoming is one of those, but it still got passed.
At 22, we have Utah up 13 spots in the rankings coming off that win against Wyoming, as mentioned earlier. Texas Tech this week. At 21, we have Rutgers down 7 spots in the rankings. They're coming off a win by 50 against Michael Vick's Norfolk State. They only collected 6 points in rating from that win. This week, they have a much better opponent in Iowa.
I love our model, but I think if it's sleeping on one team, I think the team that it's sleeping on is Iowa. Iowa has not had a lot of chances to show how good they can really be. They played a game against Iowa State that was about as close as you can get. And I think that Iowa could give Rutgers some trouble. It'll be a test to see how good Rutgers really is. I'm sure we think Rutgers is a lot better than most people, or the model thinks Rutgers is a lot better than most people think they are. So we'll see if that's true in their game against Iowa.
Iowa's got a 2-time national championship quarterback. So I'm going to, even though the model's not giving the respect to that QB, I will take them over Rutgers.
And note here, Iowa is 56th this week in the S&D 50. Winner of this game will be rewarded handsomely for a victory. Teams 11 through 20. At 20, we have Georgia Tech, 19 Vanderbilt, 18 Oregon, 17 Missouri, 16 Georgia, 15 Tulane, 14 TCU, 13 Miami, Florida, 12 Indiana, and 11 Auburn. Let's start at 20 with Georgia Tech, up 8 spots in the rankings, coming off a program walk-off 55-yard field goal, never been done before. It was thrilling, and this week they have Temple coming off a crushing loss against Oklahoma.
Oh, buckle up, Temple. That's all I gotta say there. Haynes King is gonna put on a show.
I'm sorry, Spencer.
Well, but don't forget about Louisville.
I will take Georgia Tech over Louisville any day.
I think we'll be repeating this week after week after week until Louisville proves otherwise.
Hey, don't forget about Louisville. Don't sleep on the Cardinals.
Great. It's great. All right. At 19, we have Vanderbilt up 7 spots in the rankings. Beat South Carolina this week. They have Georgia State, not Southern.
Another thing that we won't let die. Now, I think Vanderbilt, I have been a little bit of a doubter. I shouldn't have doubted Diego Pavia. I think
Say that again. Everyone else on this show has been
I've been a
Diego
bit of a
Pavia.
doubter. I've been a bit of a doubter. I will eat that. But I like where we've got Vanderbilt. We've had them here, though. Vanderbilt has been in our ratings. They've been in our top 30 before. This is not a new spot for them.
Clark Lee, don't forget that name, head coach of Vanderbilt. If he wants to go somewhere else, if he continues to show out like this, there will be many a team in the SEC calling him. Oregon at 18, up 4 spots in the rankings, win by 20 against Northwestern this week. They, in the Civil War, play Oregon State.
Northwestern has got to feel like a punching bag at this point. But I don't know. Oregon State might be more of a punching bag for the Ducks. That was such a bad comment.
So rude. You're kicking the Beavers while they're down.
That was gas bagging, and I'm so sorry for it.
Okay. At 17, we have Missouri down 6 spots in the rankings. They played Louisiana, and this week they have South Carolina.
How do you even talk about Missouri's scheduling? Like, their schedule got even luckier. Like, if Lenora Sellers doesn't play against Missouri, I just good job, Eli, I guess. I mean, I know he's not the guy selling the schedule, but it was at this point of the season last year, we all kind of looked at Missouri and were like, how are they still winning games? So maybe it's legit. Maybe I've been sleeping on Missouri. Our model hasn't been.
I wonder if fans in Columbia this is now their 4th home game in a row.
Are they getting sick of it?
Yeah,
they're wearing out too much tailgating.
Yeah, if you're a season ticket holder, you're you feel obligated. I gotta go, But they're I got other stuff I gotta do on Saturday. Come on, 6 weeks, that's nearly 2 months. I'm not gonna be able to get any house projects done. It's the fall. I can't go hunting because I have to go to all these Missouri home games. They won't hit the road, for crying out loud.
Say goodbye to any October yard work, September yard work.
Yeah, the leaves are all falling on the ground, and who's going to pick them up?
I love that someone's in Columbia with deer tags, just angry that they can't go to their stand and go hunting on Saturday because they got to go watch them play South Carolina potentially without Lenora Sellers, but they got to support either way.
They had they don't even have a bye week until the first Saturday in October as well. It's not just home games in a row. It's 5 weeks. The first 5 weeks of the season, no breaks, all home games.
And the stadium is under construction right now in the end zone.
So it's not even comfortable.
Well, it is comfortable, but you're looking at the scenic hill that was the pride and joy of Missouri is completely under renovation. So it's just steel beams right now, completely under construction.
Just wild.
It's tough. All right. 16, Georgia holding their spot. I repeat, holding their spot. They beat Tennessee by 3. They only collected 71 rating points for a win against Tennessee because they trailed by so much, so often during that game. And this week, they're on a bye, like we mentioned, because they're getting ready for Alabama.
Yeah, honestly, this feels right to me. I don't think Georgia and Tennessee was a true top 10 matchup, despite what it may have been billed as. I think that Georgia at 16 feels appropriate. I think that Kirby Smart's squad this year has more to prove. I think Gunnar Stockton in particular, he might be that guy, but it's going to take more than Tennessee to convince me of that. Now, Georgia, they've got opportunities. The SEC's full of them. So they're not going to stay at this spot. They're either going to rise up to the occasion and make it into our top 10, or they're going to slip.
Now, I will say Georgia's last opponent, Austin Peay, put a shellacking on Morehead State 56-7.
Thank you for that Austin P update. I've been wanting that. I really have.
I don't doubt it.
At 15, we have Tulane up 6 spots in the rankings with a win against Duke. This week, they have Ole Miss.
Okay, what was Duke's quarterback thinking? Transferring what former Tulane QB transfers from Tulane to Duke this year, knowing that he has to travel back to Tulane to go play his old team that he just transferred away from.
I just had the very same thought. That was my take for this show. Don't do it. Don't
Pick another
do it.
team, man, that doesn't play your old squad, especially at your old squad.
Just
They
don't
were
even
loud.
pick the same part of the country. Just go so far away. Good job, Tulane. Credit to the not Crimson Tide, the other wave mascot in college football, the Green Wave. Credit to them for putting it together. Retzloff and John Summerall's team is really good this year.
TCU at 14, down 7 spots in the rankings. They come off a win by 21 against a cupcake. This week, they have SMU.
Abilene Christian, are they anything good at all?
They're middle of the road.
All right, well, they got beat up on by a really good Big 12 team.
Yeah, they should have. So TCU is a good team. They should beat up on teams like Abilene Christian. I would consider Abilene Christian to give teams more like Sam Houston a little more run for their money, but not
Quite the high bar.
Yeah, not Sam Houston of this year, not Sam Houston of last year.
Oh, fair enough. Another thing about TCU, we have them at 14. They are not even ranked in the AP right now. They do have votes, but they're not ranked.
TCU deserves some love. This
Yes,
is why
they
we're
do.
here.
Future Big 12 champs.
Miami, 13, up 19 spots in the rankings. They absolutely boat raced USF. They get the credit they deserve. It was a great victory. And this week, they have Florida.
I mean, I guess Florida has a chance to bounce back, don't they? The trifecta over here. Can you imagine one beats the other? They'll all kind of end up in the middle.
Wild thought. It's a wild thought. And once again, Florida can't catch a break. Goodness gracious. You get LSU and you get USF, and your treat afterward is Miami. And Miami's on a heater right now. Carson Beck knows what he's doing. They're cooking. I was wrong about Miami. I did not see them this high. It's great to see the model rewarding them here at 13.
Now, the question lies, what will Miami look like on the road? Because they've yet to leave the
Comfort of Hard Rock Stadium.
Yep, exactly.
We shall see. We shall see. At 12, we have Indiana, down 2 spots in the rankings. They won by 73 against Indiana State. They only collected 5.66 points in rating for that victory. This week, the showdown we previewed last week, they have Illinois.
Is Indiana State a rivalry?
I mean, probably in basketball.
Larry Bird.
Right. And it's probably in basketball only because of the history of Larry Bird. Do we know anyone else who went to Indiana State? I dare say we don't.
There was that goggles guy a couple years back, and they had like
golly.
30-3, and
That was
they
awesome.
barely missed the NCAA tournament. It was a big controversy.
But again, basketball. This has got to be a money game for Indiana. It's got to be one of the ones that in 3 or 4 years we're going to talk about of like, can you believe how much money Indiana lost for scheduling Indiana State?
For context, Indiana's 19th in the AP poll. We have them at 12.
I will say Kurt Signetti's team gets more love from the model than it does from the voters, because I think that voters have a little bit of a recency bias. They're like, well, we did this last year, and then we finally had to push them up, and then they lost, and so we're going to keep them down again. Yeah, Indiana's put together a good season so far. 73 is nothing to scoff at. I think it's tied for the highest margin of victory of any team so far this year.
Indiana collected 52.57 points from past opponents, and that's because who did they beat? Old Dominion. Old Dominion beat Virginia Tech. We mentioned this earlier. So once again, Indiana gets rewarded for beating previous opponents who play well. Okay, at 11, we have Auburn up 1 spot in the rankings. They win by 16 against South Alabama. This week, they have a big game against Oklahoma.
We'll talk more about Auburn when we get into that Auburn-Oklahoma game, but I think that Hugh Freeze's team is appropriately ranked here. But
Agreed.
Preview, sneak peek of what's coming immediately after this slide.
This brings us to the S&D 50 top 10. At 10, we have Oklahoma. They're up 3 spots in the rankings. They won against Temple in dominant fashion, 42-3. They have Auburn this week.
Anytime an SEC team travels to a G5 level caliber of team, I have mad respect for them. So thank you, Oklahoma, for taking the time to go to Pennsylvania and kick Temple's butt.
And the model rewarded it too. Oklahoma collected 107 rating points from this beatdown. So Temple is not a bad team. Not that bad in the eyes of the model. Great win for Oklahoma. At 9, we have the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Not even in the AP top 25. We have them at 9. They're up 8 spots in the rankings. They dominated Alcorn State. This week they have Northern Illinois.
Yeah, this is among our spicier takes, I suppose. And by our, I mean the models. I think Mississippi State gets a lot of credit that it deserves here for beating Arizona State. Our model still obviously likes Arizona State. And as Arizona State continues to do well, Mississippi State will get, at least for a couple more weeks, they'll get a bump to their rating.
The model must like Texas State because that's who Arizona State beat, because Mississippi State isn't getting a bump from Alcorn. They're getting that bump from Arizona State and Texas State.
Yep. Texas State in the S&D 50 last week. They were a team to look out for and have that test against Arizona State and just did not show up.
And of those 158 rating points earned, 52 of those points came from past opponents, not from beating Alcorn State. They only got 6 points for beating Alcorn State by 63. At 8, we have Iowa State. They're at the same spot they were last week. They beat Arkansas State in kind of a back and forth battle, 24-16. This week, they're on a bye.
Yeah, Arkansas State really pushed Iowa State more than I was expecting. This was also a road game. So credit to Iowa State for driving down to Jonesboro to play Arkansas State. But the model didn't give them as much credit for this win as you would have expected. That's part of the reason that they got passed by a few teams.
It's a good time for a bye for Iowa State, having already played 4 games when a lot of other teams have only played 2 games. They need this bye. They've gone to Dublin and back. They've gone to Jonesboro and back. So this bye is going to come at a good time. I expect them to be picking up right where they left off when they get back.
At 7, we have Illinois. Down 3 spots in the rankings. They beat Western Michigan 38-0. This week, they have Indiana.
And you might say, well, why didn't they get a lot of credit for beating Western Michigan? It's because Western Michigan is 117th rated team this week. There's not a lot of credit to give a team for whooping on somebody that they're supposed to whoop.
I'm so excited for this Illinois-Indiana game. According to the S&D, this is the number 7 team playing the number 12 team. It's must-watch television. We joked in week 1 that a couple years ago you would have laughed if we said that Illinois-Indiana is a top 15 matchup. Here you go. This is what it's all about. Illinois, Indiana on the ascent.
Playoff caliber football here.
That's what I'm saying.
At number 6, we have Penn State down 4 spots in the rankings. They beat Villanova 52-6. This week, they're on a bye.
Now, this is Penn State. Just mad respect, James Franklin, but you got to schedule better to start the year. You got to play better quality opponents to start the year. Who are we beating? We're beating Villanova. This is not basketball. It's football. And you're winning by 46.
Nevada is 132 in the S&D 50 right now.
Yeah, the Penn State has not given themselves a challenge. And so they're high in the model right now, but they keep sliding because there's nothing to boost them any further.
At 5, we have Texas A&M. They're up 4 spots in the rankings. They beat Notre Dame in a thriller, 41-40. This week, they are on a bye.
Another good opportunity to take a bye for a top 10 team. I think Texas A&M needs this to reset before the rest of their SEC schedule.
At 4, quite spicy. USC up 16 spots in the rankings. They beat Purdue 33-17. This week, they have Michigan State.
This is definitely our hottest take. This is the model's hottest take for sure, is that we see USC not just as a top 20 team where we had them last week, but as a top 5 team because of the quality of play that they've put onto the field, the caliber of opponents that they're beating, and then what those opponents are turning around and doing themselves. So I think USC is a story. We're not the only people that think this. There are a lot of people that have USC creeping up, but they finally entered the AP this week at number 25. We've got them already in our top 5.
Okay, you're talking caliber of opponents. Let's see who they've beat. Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue. That gets you a top 5 ranking? I'm sorry, this one I'm a little bit puzzled how the model put this one together.
I mean, take a look at Purdue, where we had Purdue as a top 40 team last week. So at the end, it's self-reinforcing a little bit, but if Purdue loses games, then USC is going to slide. But Purdue's not out here losing games. Not only that, but Georgia Southern. Who did they go out and play?
Jacksonville State and won last week.
So they went out and got a win. So they're beating teams that are beating other teams. Now, as the season progresses and as those teams get more teams on their record, I don't know that we're expecting Georgia Southern to run the table. I don't know that we're expecting Purdue to run the table.
Or Missouri State.
But Missouri State, though, this is their first year in the FBS. And they're not winless, so there's that.
Yeah,
I said that
they beat an FCS team. Good for them.
I like USC at 4. This is why we have the model. It should be spicy because it's what you do on the field. And again, no one's watched USC yet. I haven't watched a second of USC. I'm sure most people listening will not tune into the games. Jacob's right. No one's watching these games yet.
I haven't watched any USC, I'll admit.
No, because it's not what you want to see, but the model sees the performance, rewards it, and this is why we're here. We want to see if this is actually how this holds up and how this goes throughout the year.
Jake, I talk about this model as having like 3 stages because at the end of the day, you need some games under your belt to really be able to evaluate what's going on. So as we go through week 4, we're still at the tail end of what I call the chaos phase in the model. And that's where you're going to have little outlier cases. So this may end up being one of those outlier cases, or we could just stumble in on being some of the first people to identify what USC has going on.
At 3, we have Ole Miss. Up 3 spots in the rankings. They beat Arkansas 41-35. This week, they have formidable. Don't sleep on them. Tulane.
This is a top 15 matchup in the S&D. It's not even a top 25 matchup because Tulane's not ranked in the AP. I think if this game were at Tulane, I might take the green wave, but I think Ole Miss has probably got this in the bag.
At 2, we have LSU. Up 3 spots in the rankings. A win against Florida. Don't ask Brian Kelly how his offense did and why they only had 20 points. This week, they have Southeastern Louisiana, a chance to run up the score and let that offense show what it can really do.
Anybody else see that video of Brian Kelly getting leveled by a lineman?
Poor guy. He got slammed.
He was running down the field trying to call timeout, and 2 linemen are basically tangled up with each other, and they come rolling right into him. So anyways, he looked like he got up fine and brushed it off, but dang, man, that was like 600 pounds of weight coming down.
But he was spicy in the post-game presser, so maybe he was hurting a little bit. And at 1, another week, another number 1 ranking for Ohio State. They had a game against the Ohio Bobcats and won 37-9. This game was close at halftime. The competitiveness score was 67, so this was almost competitive. Shout out to the Bobcats. This week, Ohio State is on a bye.
Well, hold on, though. Shout out to the Bobcats for making it almost competitive, as you put it.
Hey,
I think it's a great way of phrasing it. No, I'm not saying anything bad about Ohio, former MAC champions. Trying for a repeat there, but that's got to be their area to shine. It's going to be the MAC. One thing I'll point out as the model sees Ohio State, they've slowed down since beating Texas. They're not getting as many points week over week as some of the people catching up to them. So that gap that they opened up from the big marquee win against Texas, that gap has shrunk to a manageable distance. If LSU, really runs up the score on Southeastern Louisiana, they're not going to get a ton of credit for that per se. But if teams they've beat, think Florida, are able to turn around and beat really good teams, think Miami, then LSU could get a residual bump for having a really good win against a team that turned around and beat a really good team. We could be talking about LSU at number 1 next week, or Ole Miss if they turn around and beat fellow top 15 team Tulane.
Or Illinois.
Yep,
if they beat Indiana.
Illinois, if they beat Indiana, that could really boost them. That's a bigger gap there. I think for reference here, the gap between Illinois at 7 and Ohio State at 1 is 150 rating points or so. Ohio State still has a lead of about 40 points on number 2 LSU. So the gap is shrinking, but it's still there.